Welcome back to the True CNC show on CFB. Connor, welcome back to the
Thank you very
show.
much.
Just some scheduling idiosyncrasies we're ironing out here. Nonetheless, we are back for you guys to preview week 12. Maybe not the sheer star power matchup of a Big Ten, big noon kickoff in like Michigan versus Penn State, but very well still a quite the matchup I think that highlights this slate and could very well be a much better game I think than what we just saw. So
And I'd like to add, whenever we have weeks like this in college football where you go, it's probably going to play out the way we think it will, it never does. So
yeah,
I'm expecting at least one big upset or something that we'll be
fair enough.
talking about on Monday.
Fair enough. It's like to that point when you really temper your expectations, there's pretty much so much can happen that could just far exceed what we're expecting with this slate. But yeah, without further ado, Con, let's just reintroduce your questions. What's your question or questions for this week?
Yeah, I got a kind of a one question broken down into three parts. I wanted to ask you this week, what is the coaching matchup you are most looking forward to watching on Saturday?
Okay,
What are the two players facing off against each other you're most looking forward to watching? And what is the game that you're most looking forward to watching?
sure. So I will kick it off with, I guess, the order that you introduced it. So I'll go with coaching,
Okay.
coaching first, and a little bit outside the box, but given, I guess, the narratives, kind of what's at stake going into the game here, I'm actually looking at Mac Brown versus Dabo Sweeney as the coaching matchup I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
I think this game, it's so, you're down in Death Valley there in Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
UNC, on this show, we've kind of, talked about them in some negative light. They've kind of had an interesting season, to say the least, as has Clemson.
Yes.
With only maybe Clemson, they kind of went through the dumps a little bit earlier. So
Mm-hmm.
they've been maybe on the up and up for a little bit longer, slightly longer than UNC. But UNC, big emotional win they just had against Duke, obviously. And Clemson, yeah, similarly to look, it's still going to be a disappointing season, I think, relative to Clemson expectations, but it's a big opportunity for them to get a top 25 win
Mm-hmm.
against still a good, hell of a quarterback and a good offense and a very good coach in Mac Brown. So I'm really interested to see that coaching battle, especially when we get to maybe some delicate situations early in the game,
Mm-hmm.
going for it fourth and three, fourth and four around midfield. I just feel like this is going to be an interesting game, a good game,
Mm-hmm.
and I think coaching could very well be the difference in what decides that.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And also, it's just two of the best coaches in the country matching up
I
against
think,
each other,
yeah,
which is always great to see the kind of the chess match that'll go on there.
absolutely, and I think it's like you said. I mean, it's like not even overthinking it. Two very good coaches for a variety of reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just really intriguing matchup. We'll see. Obviously, the coaches aren't playing against each other on the field; the players are, but we will see the impact that they might have on the game. But should be a very good one in the ACC. And then player wise, outside the box here, so not the proverbial, I guess, on the field at the same time, offensive versus defensive type matchup. I'm actually going, so I'm going out west now. I have Damian Martinez versus Dylan Johnson. I think from how the game might go, if Damian Martinez is winning that battle handily, I think that really bodes well for Oregon State and really badly for Washington potentially if they're just able to kind of run down Washington's throat and just kind of have these long, prolonged scoring drives with ease.
Yeah.
And yeah, hence if Martinez wins that matchup, it could almost be like the winner of that matchup, I think, wins. It's almost indicative of who might win the game very well. Dylan Johnson, if he does what we've seen of him, obviously not too long ago, ball end of the week for his
Yep.
crazy performance he's put up and he's already shown that he's capable of. So if Dylan Johnson wins the matchup, I think that kind of is indicative of a game where Washington, look, maybe two different cases. If Dylan Johnson in theory were to win this matchup, either he's carrying a load
Mhm.
and a Michael Penix, a passing offense that's maybe struggling or maybe hasn't found it as easy as they have had, much a game this season, or if he is able to win the matchup relatively, Dylan Johnson that is, having just a two-headed monster, a really multi-plicative or multiple offense, I should say, that really just bodes horribly, I think, for Oregon State, and that means I think Washington maybe runs away with that
Yeah.
if Washington has that dual-headed monster on offense. But
I love multi-applicative, by the way.
yeah, plicative. I
No,
think we get the
I'm gonna
gist.
start using it. I'm throwing it into the vernacular.
Yeah,
I couldn't love it more.
yeah,
Uh,
just sounds cool and sounds smart to use. So
but I will say, yeah, if I'm Washington, my entire game plan is going to center around trying to stop Damian Martinez because
mhm,
he's so good, so elite, and like you said, if they can slow the game down by just having prolonged running the ball drives like that, it's going to bode really well for them.
mhm.
So yeah, if I'm Washington, not that I would love to have DJ go crazy against me, I'm going to say, hey, you have to pass the ball against me. I'm stacking the box all game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Going to be obviously the game of the weekend,
Hmm.
possibly very well with what's at stake and just a top 10 matchup we got.
Yeah.
And who would have thought at this going into the season at this point we would be saying that in Corvallis, but yeah, I think with that, look, I'll wrap up my overall matchup. And look, we're sticking in the Pac-12. I'm going with Arizona versus Utah as what I'm most looking forward to from a overall matchup perspective because look, I think the winner of this matchup pretty much has an inside track to vault right up kind of on the fringe of the top 10
Yeah.
with talking what is it? We're talking maybe 16 versus 18 or something along those lines,
Mhm.
two top 20 teams. And it's just like we've talked about on the show before. I mean, we've talked a lot about the Pac-12, a lot about I think Utah and Arizona
Yep.
on this show. And it's just they're two fun teams. They're two obviously good teams, top to bottom. And yeah, talk about all different types of matchups within matchups in that game. The quarterbacks, obviously darling of the show, Noah Fafita, right? Bryson Daniels, he held his own, almost toe to toe with Penix just
Yeah.
last weekend, up in Seattle. But yeah, and then we're talking receivers. The Cowings, the Tet McMillans, the or Jaquindon Jackson on. I
Mhm.
mean, there's a bunch. It's just a fun matchup, I think, and
It
one I'm
is.
looking forward to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that is by far one of the best games of the week.
mhm.
I'm stoked to watch that one too. I'll hop into my list now.
Yes, kick us off with where you're at, Con.
So for my coaching matchup, I have one that's probably flying under a lot of people's radars.
Okay.
But I've got Luke Fickle going up against Matt Rule. They were the two gems of the coaching
Sure.
search in the offseason. They
Hmm.
both went to the Big Ten, both to schools that have obviously a lot of history of success, but we're coming off a little bit of a bad stretch
Hmm.
with Nebraska, a very prolonged bad stretch.
Hmm.
But both of these teams thought we got our guy, we got the guy, right? And two coaches who have had incredible success in college, particularly taking over programs that weren't known for great success and bringing them to new heights.
Sure.
So I think the way that they're being looked at right now, they have the same record in the same conference, and I think Wisconsin fans are getting pretty antsy on the Luke Fickle thing. Nebraska fans are just happy to not have a losing record, and they think
Sure.
we definitely got our guy.
Hmm.
But just for all of the preseason discourse about these two coaches being the best two coaches you could have hired, going to the same conference, and both schools thinking we got our guy, we got the right guy. It's going to be interesting to see not just how that game plays out, but specifically the coaching matchup and see how the two fan bases react.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very intriguing below the surface. I guess not maybe in the spotlight because of how the two teams' seasons have fared,
Mhm.
relatively. But yeah, that is quite a coaching matchup for sure. I mean, yeah, depending on how that game goes, I mean, it could really just especially if I see, I mean, depending on if Nebraska were to come out of that with a decent, uh, controlling win. I mean, it's like Wisconsin. It's that meme of the dog, like the dog sitting down with the hat, and it's just the house is on fire. It's just there. I mean, from a fandom, it just seems like everything. Um, there's a lot that could be on the line, or just dictating, obviously, people's the storyline. A week from now
Yeah.
of oh my God, what have we done here, or where are we going? But yeah, I like that's a really good call for the coaching matchup.
For my player matchup, I'm going to go with Noah Fafita in your game of the week, who, as you said, darling of the show. We love him. One of the things that I love so much about Noah Fafita when you watch him play is his ability to maneuver in the pocket or get out of the pocket and avoid the defense and
Sure.
make a play downfield or make a play with his legs, do whatever he needs to, but stay out of that kind of trouble. He's going up against Jonah Ellis, who's perhaps the best defensive end in the country this year, second most sacks in the country of anyone, most in any Power Five team, and and that's going to be really interesting to me. The reason I went with Fafita and not with the tackles, two reasons. I had to say tackles because Jonah Ellis will line up at either defensive end. He can come off of both edges.
Sure.
But also because, like I said, that's a strength of Fafita is not getting sacked when someone gets to him early. Obviously, it's a strength of Ellis to get those sacks. So I'm really interested to see how that'll play out, and I think it could be the story of the game.
Yeah, I'm just kind of cracking up. That's funny that you say that because that was one of the ones I was really thinking about. And in terms of, traditional quarterback versus a incredible pass rush, almost a one-man show with Ellis
Yeah.
on that Utah line. I mean, he's been unbelievable and really kind of burst onto the scene this year. Already intriguing conversations about is he, we'll see maybe how after the season, not getting too far ahead, but a draft cycle, maybe he ends up being the first defensive end picked. Really, it might be it's him and versus Latu, and
Yeah.
I mean the Pac-12. There's just so much talent. How there's so many angles about how good of a season they're having. It's just, of course, it's not going to be a thing. Or Washington and Oregon State are going to be a thing in the Pac. But yeah, aside there, it's that. No, to your point, that is such an intriguing matchup. And like you said, Fafita, he's got this. He's not the biggest guy at all, but what that lends his one of his strengths is he's really slippery within the pocket and
Yep.
can extend plays and going up against a guy that's like an Adonis, a huge like Jonah Ellis. Physically, it's like the complete opposite, not physically imposing versus probably like the poster child for physically like an athletic freak who could wreak havoc or maybe not. It's who wins that battle. I think is again, it's almost like a battle within a battle. Who wins that team that probably wins the game.
Yeah. So I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, great highlight there.
And then I'll go with my matchup of the week. I'll pick the best game.
Yeah.
I'll
Yep.
take Washington and Oregon State. I had a backup because I thought we might both go there, but
That's what I was on that. I was thinking that. So then I was just like, I'll get the second best out of the way. Also another Pac-12 game,
but also a game that has massive college football playoff implications.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And man, if Oregon State just had one more win heading into this one, imagine they beat Washington State.
Yeah.
Looking back, I mean, it's crazy to think about what a game in late September,
Yeah.
the effect that's having now. Well, I mean, it's just crazy to think about. But what's not crazy at all is we know it's going to be still two incredibly talented teams, and especially, I just love how it's Washington, the top, the fifth ranked team. They've had an absolute gauntlet, and this is, the biggest or as big of a test, well, arguably more because of the fact they're going to be on the road in a hostile environment. You're not at home when you played how you played Oregon.
And just with
weeks.
it being this point in the season, all of the pressure,
What's
it
on?
builds week to week. This is
100%.
the most pressure-filled week they've had yet.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I can't wait to watch this game. It's going to be hopefully a great one. Hopefully it really delivers. And even if it doesn't, it'll still be interesting to see which way it doesn't deliver,
Yeah. But yeah, great call there. I think it's a simple call, but it was always going to be one of our two. But with that, before we go into our Week 12 preview, extended preview here, Con, we missed your update. Missed you. Just give a little bit of a any words about the Michigan, about Harbaugh, anything in general.
Okay, so there are a couple updates since the last time I've given one.
Hmm.
But before I get to the actual updates in the story, I do want to say I skipped over perhaps the funniest part of this whole story, which was that when questioned about how Connor Stallions acquired the money to go to these games, to send other people to these games, all that, when he was making reportedly $50,000 a year,
Hmm.
he claimed that it was all the proceeds from his vacuum repair business that he does on the side, which is, I mean, just the funniest little wrinkle in this whole thing, I think.
Yeah, the vacuum repair, which I'm kind of miss reporting here, but the vacuum repair company side business that was also connected to Blake Corum, kind of, sort of, but it's who
Who Blake
knows.
Corum said, I have no
I've
knowledge of
never,
that
yeah,
business.
LLC's vacuum. It's a very odd saga that.
Yes, and then also in the everything that's come out of this and
Hmm.
people looking into Connor Stallion's
Hmm.
finances, one of which was that his home is apparently worth, I think, $480,000 on a $50,000 salary. I don't know who he got giving him that loan at the bank, but I'd like to have a
Yeah.
word with that guy.
Hmm.
But the actual piece of news that has come from that is today it was reported that one of Michigan's biggest boosters apparently was perhaps financing all of this Connor Stallion stuff, which I mean, I think you can look at it as a very damning look for the Michigan program and say, like, how would this booster even know about this
Hmm.
assistant coach if not directed by Jim Harbaugh? That I think there's also a flip side to look at it and go, maybe all of the people saying he was like acting as a rogue agent, if he had this booster who's not actually connected to the program, just a wealthy alum in his
Hmm.
pocket, who's to say he wasn't? It's again every day it looks more and more likely that everyone in the entire program knew, but Michigan will use that angle, I'm sure, to
Hmm.
say, look, we didn't even know he was getting this money from this other guy who, you know. And then finally, I don't think we have ever discussed the Jim Harbaugh 3 game suspension.
Not, yeah, not
It was about to
all the
come
way. Yeah,
out the
it was
last time
in
we
the
talked about
exactly.
this.
Yeah, it was rumored out
It
there.
actually broke about 5 minutes after we stopped recording that day.
Yep, but yeah, probably should have maybe figured out some disclaimer in there mid post production. But yeah, I and most recently, just as of yesterday, him basically just as him in the program, Michigan just kind of throwing in the towel, saying, "Okay, fine, we're good with like we'll just kind of dropping." Obviously, there was the concerted attempt when they obviously got to Happy Valley and
Hmm.
Penn State to figure out a way to get him, motions to get him a temporary restraining order to get him on
Hmm.
the field, but then obviously not enough time. So I think this is probably the sensible thing. I would think for Michigan,
Hmm.
if from the lens of just accept temporary a little defeat, so to speak, but you kind of I don't know. We'll see. Maybe look, it is what it is. You just saw what Sharon Moore was able and what you're able to do without Harbaugh.
Hmm.
It's like you just get through this, you get by, and then it's almost like, hey, we just accepted we just
Yep.
accepted these sanctions. Like it's kind of like buying them a little bit of maybe good grace for a more severe sanction that would maybe be levied by the NCAA.
Hmm.
Like maybe just getting in some good graces
Yes.
for now.
So one piece of it that I was sure that he was going to get the temporary restraining order or the injunction. I actually used to work in the industry. I was a legal consultant
Hmm.
before my current job, and just knowing how all of this stuff works, it felt like a slam dunk he could have gotten it, and it wasn't denied. Michigan dropped that. Looking into why they would have done that, first of all, I think the reason the Big Ten did it at 4 o'clock on a Friday was because every judge in the country takes off early on Fridays, and there was no way to get it get an injunction before
Hmm.
that game on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I thought, all right, he'll serve the 1 game at Penn State, he'll get his injunction, and he'll coach the rest of the regular season. But I saw a very interesting theory about why Michigan would have just dropped this, not just to maybe get a more lenient NCAA sentence, but it is actually you cannot plead the fifth in a court case that does not have criminal sanctions involved. So NCAA, they go to court fairly often, but not for criminal matters. And so Jim Harbaugh, if they put him on the stand, would not have been able to plead the fifth or say, I don't know, he would have had to legally answer every question directly, including, did you know Connor Stallions was doing this? So I thought that was a very interesting tidbit that may have been why they dropped this, plea for a temporary restraining order, was that they may have realized, oh, Jim could go on the stand and have to answer under oath honestly every question.
Yeah. Yeah, which, no, that's, I mean, the more you say, every second you say that, it becomes just seems more the reality
Yeah.
of what, and maybe talking about conspiracies, maybe not, it's not even all that conspiratorial, but it's okay. You get the wait until you're on the plane, wait until judges just, okay, you get the ban, and then it's okay, well, you have to respond, you have to react to it. So on the public as a facade on the surface, oh, what the heck's this? This is a complete overstep, and all these other ads and schools can celebrate this, but it's a dangerous precedent. You kind of say your piece in the moment, you release the statement, and you give the response on the surface. But it's like, did they always have the plan? Okay, look, or maybe once they obviously got maybe consult from more lawyers and counsel that made it obvious and much more clear to them in the immediate aftermath, the hours after thereafter. But it's just it almost makes too much sense that, okay, well, they have to say something, they have to be outward against it, voice some displeasure and qualms with that, and then okay, well, wait, just kind of sweep it under the rug, and then just a week later, okay, sure, like, well, just to kind of, yeah, pretty much as best mitigate this mess. I think that it basically is this has been maybe Michigan's best course of action. Maybe that's become more maybe more apparent than obviously what it seemed to UI or anybody obviously a week or two ago.
Yeah.
But it's just how this is ever evolving. But yeah, just
I will say
curious
the
to
one
see.
thing that was curious was, well, hey, two things. This suspension coming from the Big Ten. You would think the Big Ten would not want to do anything to get in the way of one of their own teams
Yeah.
potentially winning a national championship, because that benefits the conference so much, not just in notoriety and all that, but in the money that you get from advancing each round in the college football playoff and all that.
Sure.
Which that money gets split amongst all of the schools in the conference. So you would think as a conference commissioner, you would say, we'll do what the NCAA is going to do. We're not going to touch it till the off season. That was a little curious to me. And then the other was, I can't recall, I don't know if you can, a time where there's been in-season sanctions for a discretion within that same season. Now, sometimes you'll see something from 2018, they post the sanctions in 2019 in the middle of the year.
Yep.
But I can't ever remember something with this quick of a turnaround where the story breaks in like week 8 and in week 11 there's a suspension.
Yep. No, that's exactly to your point. That's been a focal point of previous discussion on the show. Just how this is so unprecedented, and just yeah, just going to be so unprecedented, so complex. Still a web that is just seemingly still very tangled with multiple parties and a lot of implications. So just sit back and sit back in your seat and hold your popcorn, get it ready, or just have it ready for for I don't know how long. We could be looking at a long time, even after this end of the season. After the season, we will just buckle up, I guess. But yeah, I think
One more thing,
okay.
just on the levity of it. Jim Harbaugh's press conference, all the quotes that came out of that, when he had a raspy voice. They asked him, "Are you getting sick?" And he said, "I'm the iron wall that viruses smash against and die." And he said,
I didn't even know that. Okay.
he goes, well, when asked about again being potentially ill, he was like, I'll do some more push-ups and eat an apple. That's the only medicine I need.
That's
Yeah,
just funny.
he
That's
famously has said on multiple occasions he doesn't want his players eating any chicken because a chicken's a nervous bird and they'll absorb the nervous energy. And then in the press conference, he talked about how he now raises chickens and they produce an egg every 26 hours and they're low maintenance, so they're high performance animals. So now he does want his players eating chickens now that he knows they're high performance animals.
yeah. I didn't even. That's funny. I didn't even know.
Yeah,
I
he's a
had like
wacko,
no.
but
Yeah, wacko and yeah. Maybe it's all making sense. It's the chicken guy. Of course, the chicken guy would be entangled in this. But yeah, I think enough Michigan for this week
yes.
for this show. Some good valuable discussions, multifaceted, not multiplicative just yet. But let's get into this week's slate,
Yes.
week 12, Connor. Speaking of Michigan, they
Jump
got a
right
big
into it.
noon. I guess still big noon Fox heading to College Park,
Hmm.
taking on the Terrapins there with a Maryland team that they played Ohio State in that game a little bit pretty close for a little bit. But I feel like my just brief 10-second take on this is Michigan. It's a bit of like a buzzsaw. They're just so motivated. I think no one's really standing in their way. The only team that might is an Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, my takeaway on it is this is a Maryland team that at one point we had high hopes for. They started the season 5-0, were ranked
Mm-hmm.
fairly highly. They're now 6-4. They've gone 1-4 in their last five. It feels like the wheels have come off. They're just
Yep.
biding time till the end of the season. That being said, Talia Tagovailoa is a very good quarterback still. And if there's one game you're going to get up for, it's going to be to beat the cheaters in your own conference. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a chance they come out with some fire here, but I just think the disparity between the talent level and how things have been going recently, it feels like a Michigan smash spot.
100%. Yep. I couldn't agree more there. Going down to Tuscaloosa, Bama versus Chattanooga. I don't how this is a game at this time of the year. I don't know how that ends up being a scheduling thing. I mean, it's just odd considering obviously all that's at stake still for Bama to just have this non-conference game.
Well, this is what the SEC does, the
Yeah.
entire SEC, and we'll see it throughout the
Hmm.
slate that we talk
We
about.
will. We will.
They have their huge rivalry game, last regular season game of the season, and they all take a Chattanooga
Cupcake.
or somebody the
Yep.
week before, so they basically get 2 weeks to prep for the rivalry game. Everyone hates it every year, and I hate it as a viewer, but in my opinion, is it any worse than Ohio State having Youngstown State week two? Or
Yeah, it's all just
they
timing.
play the same amount of cupcakes. It's
Yep.
just when they do it.
Hmm.
And the SEC always feels like the focal point of because we get to this time of the year and we think, all right, Alabama 9-1, they got a chance for who are they playing this week? Chattanooga.
Hmm.
Week two, you're used to seeing, oh yeah, all the big boys are playing terrible teams, but
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it's just timing. So easy to kind of talk down about
mhm,
Bama in this case. But yeah, to your point, it's everybody, and if it's in your control and you can kind of
yeah. I
figure
mean,
out your
frankly,
schedule.
I don't know why. Again, I'm not advocating for it because as a viewer, I would hate to see it, but Michigan and Ohio State play next week. They play the same week every year. I don't know why they both don't schedule cupcakes this
Yeah,
week and have just an earlier Big Ten game earlier in the season. But
yeah, yep. Or just I guess iron sharpens iron. They're the thought
yeah,
that we want to be semi-tested and go through some adversity and ahead of what figuring out what the heck we have to fix
hmm
ASAP. But yeah, look, enough of this aside with this matchup. Don't even really have lines to go off of here.
yeah,
But
they won't even put a line on this game. They
yeah,
may put one out Saturday morning. Either way, Bama's going to win by about a billion.
yep, yep. Speaking of a game that I don't think is going to be decided by a billion, Louisville taking on your Canes, Con, at the Hard Rock in Florida.
Hmm.
There, Miami a slight favorite here, which I can see why they that home field. Just an interesting, I don't know, maybe a little bit interesting of a line to me on the surface.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you can see why, please enlighten me because I cannot see why. I mean, I've watched every Miami game all season. Obviously, I'm a huge Miami fan. I've watched a lot of Louisville fans because I watch a lot of a lot of Louisville games because I watch a lot of ACC football, and Louisville just appears to be better at everything, and Miami's a 1 point favorite.
Yeah, look, Con, I think we might be. This might be a juncture where, look, you rightfully followed it last week with Texas Tech and the
Hmm.
shock factor of a line. I think I might have to take a page this week, and I think it is so weird and such a yeah just shock factor line. I'll go Miami. I'll go Miami -1 as a best bet. I'm calling it now. It's so odd and confusing, but hey, maybe we get a Van Dyke bounce back.
You thieving son of a bitch. Look
I
at what I have written down right here for my best bets. I got Miami -1 under the exact same thinking that it's the same thing I did with Texas Tech last week. I said, this line makes so little sense. I have to go against my own brain because clearly my own brain is missing something.
okay. Oh, okay. I'll. You thought. Look,
No, no,
you
no.
thought
You
it
said it
first.
first.
No,
That's
but
it.
you
I
thought you
could have
read
said
it.
it.
It was written down now. But yeah, we'll give you some more picks. Obviously, it's not the only best bet, especially after the semi momentum we have going on the show. But yeah, just seems like we're very much in lockstep here with
Hmm.
how odd of a line it is, and I don't know. I think it's you just in short we can wrap up. Talked about this narrative before with obviously a host of other matchups potentially week in week out. Miami, I think it might just be a from a pure talent standpoint and a
Hmm.
pedigree. You got there's some guys and some athletes
Hmm.
on both sides of the ball. This is maybe a game where maybe just one or two people, some are in sync and they're able to
Hmm.
get some engines churning that and show up against a 10th ranked Louisville team, which still, yeah, if they can pick up this win, I mean they have a little track to be on that, like we've talked about,
Yeah.
make some real noise here. But I don't know. I guess with what we maybe had thought, but now with the line, we're just I mean, leaning Miami here. That's kind of the first best bet we got out there for you. But anything else come before we move on? Or
Miami's offense is struggling so bad to move the ball right now. Miami actually does have a very good defense. They kept it within 7 with Florida State last
Mhm.
week, who's a very good team, obviously. They've played good in a lot of their, they've got 4 losses. All 4 were close games that, Miami kind of played well in, but the offense is just so anemic right now. I can't see them winning this game unless it's like 14-7.
But we got a best bet for you anyways.
But yeah, I'm still taking it
Yeah.
just because, yeah.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. Maybe it's like a glass half full. It's already been so bad. Can it really get worse? But I guess speaking of is going to get worse for a Penn State team, I don't think. Look, we liked Rutgers as a best bet, the only best bet that didn't hit last week. But I don't think. I think yeah. I think this is maybe. I think this is truly a response type game for Penn State, and it does feel like this is the very game where, look, every season now, it's obviously
Hmm.
you end up as a 9-10 win team. You have the really disappointing Michigan, Ohio State losses, but you respond and you come out firing
Hmm.
in the games following.
Hmm.
Because look, otherwise, if they haven't up to this point, Franklin would probably have been fired at this point. So I think this is the type of
Yeah.
come out and really respond on a semi-national scale. Obviously, their CFP hopes are done, but I don't think Rutgers is gonna. To talk about talent, I don't think Rutgers has enough to hang with Penn State here at all. But
Yeah, I mean, everything feels like, at least from the Penn State fan base, and I'm sure it's seeping its way into the locker room, like James Franklin can't do it. He'll never win the big one.
mhm.
This stinks. We're the same team every year. We're dead. Who cares?
Yeah,
The thing is, like you said, it's felt like that the last 5 years when they go 10-2 and only lose to Michigan and Ohio State. And
hmm
And every year when it feels like, all right, they're dead, nobody cares anymore, it's over, they win the last couple games and they finish 10-2 and they get a New Year's Six bowl game. So I think probably just, yeah, that'll stick with tradition.
Yep. It's just the hot seat has never gotten quite hot enough, and
Well,
I
he
don't think
has
it's
a very difficult buyout to buy out. I believe he has the same contract in his clause that Jimbo
like
Fisher
Jimbo.
has,
Jimbo. Yep.
which is that almost every buyout you ever hear, oh my God, they're giving this guy $50 million to walk away. Well, they all have this clause in there that as soon as you start working for another team, any money you make for that team comes off the buyout essentially. So if you sign a $30 million contract when you're owed 50 by your previous school, they only owe you 20 now. James Franklin, I believe, has the same clause Jimbo Fisher has, which is that that doesn't apply. You know, Jimbo Fisher's owed $76 million, I think. If he goes and signs a $75 million contract somewhere else tomorrow, they still owe him all 76 of that. They don't get any of it off. I believe James Franklin has that same, so I don't think Penn State's going to be buying him out unless they go like 5-7 some year.
Yeah, which doesn't. It's just not going to happen because he
Yeah.
gets the talent's always there. It's just coming into the big
Yeah.
spots. But
And I will stick up for the guy a little bit. Yes, it seems like he can't ever win the big one, but going 10-2, most teams in the country would kill for that. And the two that he's losing to consistently, Michigan and Ohio State, nobody's beating those teams. They make the college football
yeah,
playoff every year.
yeah, yeah,
Also, the last two guys I can remember who were in big spots like that, who couldn't win the big one, were Jim Harbaugh, who still hasn't won a national title but has gone to back-to-back college football playoffs now, and Kirby Smart, who has now won back-to-back national championships.
yep.
So sometimes you can't win the big one until you do, and then you break through and you're great. But
So yeah, maybe it's just some hope still there for them. But yeah, look, I think another quick matchup running through this noon kickoff window. Talk about kind of odd cupcake, scheduling. UL Monroe against Ole Miss. Yeah, Ole Miss. I think speaking of just Penn State, talking about trying to bounce back after a tough loss versus Georgia. Ole Miss. Yeah, 30. Okay, we do have a line on this one, 37.5 point. I mean that sounds about right. Maybe they only win by 35.5 or 35, no half-point wins, but yeah, maybe it's only 5 touchdowns is what they win by. But I mean, Ole Miss should just be a buzzsaw. They shouldn't have any troubles. I mean, I don't think this matchup is what it is. I
no.
mean, any other thoughts?
Yeah, and again, it's what we talked about with Alabama. This is what the SEC does. Before the big rivalry game, they got the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving. Sure, we'll take a cupcake this week, and we'll probably beat them by 1,000,000.
Yep, yep. I guess matchup not quite 1,000,000, but compared to the 37.5 we just talked about, 24-point line, Oklahoma favored against BYU here. Although it is in Provo, and we have seen Oklahoma obviously have some struggles already this season. Maybe on the surface, I think this is quite a chunk to cover against the BYU team, and I feel like it is, those Utahans, I don't even
Utes?
what Utes. I guess Utes in general. Although that's I guess
It's Utah's
University of
mascot,
Utah.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
and Utes. All
I
right,
don't
but
think they go by Utah.
no, Utahans. I mean, it's
Utanese.
yeah. But yeah, I think just in the point being, it's definitely a home field advantage. It's definitely going to be a crowd that's up for it and trying to make things as difficult as possible for Oklahoma. But I don't know. I just maybe I guess I'm not so confident to pick. I guess leaning it would be BYU for me. But I think Oklahoma. I think their worst football's behind them at this point for Oklahoma. But
Yeah. I think this game doesn't matter that much for Oklahoma, which is almost a better thing based on how their season has gone.
sure.
It feels like the big games are the ones that I mean, obviously they beat Texas, which was huge. So, but other than that, it feels like big spots haven't gone great for them. I feel like this is a game they almost don't care if they go 10-2 or 9-3 at this point. They were a couple weeks ago thinking college football playoff. Now they're, you know, happy to do well in the Big 12, I'm sure, and stay highly ranked. But I almost think that bodes well for them on some level. So yeah, I'll take Oklahoma here.
Okay. Tulane, FAU, down in Boca Raton at the FAU Stadium. Really creative name there. But no disrespect, an FAU team that seemingly maybe they're a little bit better than the 4-6 record indicates slightly. But I mean, I full disclosure, I mean, I haven't been following this FAU program, so the closest necessarily. But I mean, Tulane, they have they got a quarterback, they've got a roster. But we just saw them struggle or just eke out a win against Tulsa, as I recapped this on our show yesterday. But I don't know. Yeah, just not something I'm so keen to pick. I guess in terms of the line here, but
Yeah, Tulane struggled more than their record would indicate, more than their ranking would indicate. They've struggled a lot this year, actually. Winning games most of the time. Still, they're 9-1.
yeah, just really close.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and FAU, the one thing they do well is, I don't even know if you would say they do it super well, but they throw the ball a ton. And so if you're going to throw the ball a lot, it only takes a couple, big breakers to make, to keep a game within 9 points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess if I was picking on the line, I'd pick Florida Atlantic just based on that, even though Tulane's definitely the better team.
Sure. Gotcha. Yeah. Shout out. They do have just looking at the preview here. I mean, they do FAU because I'm a semi college football. I'm a huge obviously fantasy NFL guy, but college football they do have LeJontay Wester. He's already 1,000 yards on the season, 8 touchdowns. So like you're saying, if there is a calling card, you got the big play threat and explosive offense that can be a threat to any and all teams. So should be interesting to follow there, but not too convicted either way, I don't think. But heading into one of the matchup I'm most looking forward to and really intrigued by, Utah against Arizona. I guess I did miss. Yeah, okay, because they did obviously just lose to Washington. So what their maybe 17th or 16th ranking of last week was, now they're actually outside. They're 22 ranked team now. But I think we talked about this. I think they might be truly better than the 22nd best or 22nd ranked team. I think they might be more of a top 20th bet in terms of true best teams here.
Yep.
But Arizona, 1-point favorite here. Another lot talking. I guess it's these 1-point lines that are kind of maybe slightly confusing me here. But yeah, oh man, I'm maybe going as far as to say it's confusing me enough, but Arizona, if anything, I guess my point is I would think Arizona would be more favored. So, but they are at home. I don't know.
Well, Utah has been great all season. They've lost to Washington and Oregon and Oregon State. So they've lost to 3 top 10 teams in the country, or their only 3 losses.
Yep.
So I think Utah deserves all the credit that they get, and probably more credit than they get. I can't think of anyone else who would have even played 3 top 10 teams in the country this year.
Or I think they did actually. They did beat Oregon State.
Oh yeah, they
did
beat
Oregon. So
who was
Arizona.
that third loss to?
Well, an early season. I think it might have been to actually not a great team, but
yeah. Regardless, Arizona on the other hand, we've talked about it. They started 2-2 with Jaden Delora at quarterback.
Or no, that is. I was thinking. I guess wrapped it. Ignore that. Yeah.
So yeah, I was right.
You're right.
They've lost to 3
I was
top 10
thinking of
teams in the
Arizona. I was
country.
thinking. Yep.
So yes, 7-3, but with 3 top 10 losses makes you better than the 22nd best team in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
That being said, Arizona, we talked about it. They started 2-2 with Jaden Delora at quarterback, and since then they're 5-1 with their one loss being a multi-overtime game to USC.
And the new quarterback's pretty much first game.
Yeah.
In Fafita, and it's just been on the up and up. Yep.
So I think, talk about a team that's probably better than their ranking if you just went by, not resume, just who are the best teams in the country. Arizona might be like the 10th best team in the country.
They've been making a case for that. Yeah, talking about like a 5-6 week rolling resume. No, that absolutely could very well be the case. So, oh my god, I feel like I want to pick either. I gotta put down a pick here, but let's Con, do you have a pick here? Let's pick your brain before we.
I can't pick it. We've talked about both teams a lot. They've both kind of been my babies this year. I've been talking about a lot as
Hmm.
the second tier in the Pac-12, but are still great teams. And like I said in the counters questions segment, I think it all comes down to that matchup. How slippery can Fafita be? Are they going to be able to get to him and hit him? Or I think they'll be able to get to him either way. It's Are they going to be able to get to him and hit him and sack him and make him throw bad passes? Or is he going to be able to sneak out and do his Noah Fafita stuff? And are they just going to score more points than Utah? So to me, that's why that player matchup's so intriguing. I can't pick it because I could see it going either way.
Hmm. And you know what? I think I maybe reached a compromise here. There is actually a pick now. I think I've identified,
All right.
but we will get into that soon enough. Georgia, Tennessee, a interesting matchup. I think 10 points. So a 10 point line here for Georgia. I think. Well, I honestly think Tennessee is maybe gonna. I think they will play relative to obviously the huge blowout Georgia just had against an Ole Miss team. Maybe not not a trap. I'm not saying as much as a trap game for
Mhm.
Georgia, but maybe come out sleeping a little bit in the first half. And overall, I could just see Tennessee playing Georgia, much more, tightly than Ole Miss
Mhm.
just did. For more than I should say for more than the first drive where did go out on a 7-0 lead, but then it was
Mhm.
all just kind of
Yeah.
Georgia there. But yeah, this was actually one of the. This was another one I actually considered for in terms of within the game player matchups, the quarterback matchups. I'm intrigued in
Mhm.
this one because yeah, Carson Beck. I think he's really my, I guess, one to watch outside looking in here for potential Heisman. I mean, he's been putting up some good performances. It's just, is it going to be enough come December? I don't know.
He's been playing very well, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously they've won every game. I don't think he has the counting stats to get there. It's just going to be
Not
so
yeah,
tough
just
to,
not
yeah.
not enough.
Um,
And yeah,
but yeah, you called this a very intriguing matchup. To me, it's a thoroughly unintriguing matchup. I think Georgia's just better. They're better on offense. They're better on defense. They're better coached. They're a
sure.
two-time national champ. Tennessee's a
Hmm.
pretty good SEC football team, but pretty good SEC football team doesn't beat Georgia. That's my take on the game.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess just in the vein of intriguing, more so than what we just saw. I think Georgia, but yeah, take it with a grain of salt relatively here because as Connor's saying there, I mean it's intriguing could mean yeah, within 2 touchdowns at half relative to Georgia
Yeah.
expectations. Yeah, not over by the end of the first quarter, so to speak. But moving on to a great, really sexy, attractive Illinois versus Iowa matchup, right? I mean, that's got to be talk about high scoring, beautiful offensive, right? It must be April 1st, I guess. But jokes aside, there. I mean, kind of let you kind of lead this one. I mean,
I'm done picking Iowa games. Every time I say they stink, they win by
yeah.
22, and every time I say that they're bad, or I said they're good, they lose.
Hmm.
I'm done with this team. I'm tired of watching them play. I'm tired of trying to predict what they're gonna do. They make me look stupid every time I talk about them. That being said, if I have to pick on this game, Brett Bielema was good for one of these every year where he has a team that's not great, but they're okay, and then they beat the 16 ranked team in the country, and everyone's like, "Oh, Brett Bielema." And obviously, with his Iowa legacy, I'm sure he wants to, he wants this one as bad as any game. So if I have to pick on this game, I'll pick Illinois, which means bet Iowa heavy.
Yeah. When it comes to Iowa, yeah, we kind of have like a Big Ten West blinder here. It seems like on the show, just not a good read on it.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna pretend to have any read on this one. Yeah, Con, you so all the analysis that was needed there. Talk about ACC, Wake Forest against Notre Dame, which Notre Dame, it's like I guess they maybe had a bye or something. I mean, I feel like they've almost gone. Oh my, Notre Dame. Obviously they've kind of been forgotten, I guess,
Mhm.
after the downward semi spiral that they've had. But 24 point. I mean, 24 and a half ACC matchup, or I guess, and actually not ACC. I'm thinking obviously basketball season. It's just still the independent Notre Dame here in football, but. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really yeah, talk about a not really intriguing matchup. This maybe takes the cake for me and not
Yeah,
intriguing.
I mean the one point here is it's Sam Hartman's return to Wake Forest. It's actually in Notre Dame, but it's
True,
he's
true,
playing his old team where he made
very
his
true.
name and all of that,
Hmm.
and so there'll probably be some nice, well, there won't be a ceremony because, like I said,
Yeah,
it's in South Bend. But
yeah.
if it were at Wake Forest, there'd probably be a nice homecoming thing on the video board or whatever.
Hmm.
Other than that, yeah, I mean, Sam Hartman's playing his old team. That's about all the analysis you need on this. Wake Forest is 4-6, and every time I watch them play, I can't believe they have 4 wins. They do not look very good.
Yeah, maybe just yeah, a couple cupcake games, and then maybe talking about the ACC, not top to bottom. There's a lot of I've said it before, a lot of wild cards in the ACC, but Wake Forest not one of them.
Yeah.
In terms of upset alerts, I don't think. Um, Talk about potential upset alert as far as the maybe two respects here. What the line considers in terms of a Clemson team at home,
Hmm.
but the ranked team is number 20 UNC here, Connor. How do you? I've talked about going to be really intriguing coaching matchup. How do you see the actual game playing out itself?
Um, Other than at the quarterback position, I think Clemson's going to have, just the most talent on the field. And Kate Klubnik's not even a bad quarterback. Just,
Had some lows and some
yeah.
yeah,
But
but
obviously Drake May is far superior there. But it just feels like, Clemson's going to have more talent on the field. They are probably the better team. They're having the worst season by far.
yeah,
But yeah, I think Clemson is maybe one of the most slept on teams in the country right now. They took those 4 losses, and when you look at them, it was a Duke team that has fallen off certainly, but has had a pretty good season. Has been ranked a lot this year. Florida State, obviously, no shame in losing that one. A Miami team that they took to overtime, who we've talked too much about Miami on this program. But again, not a bad football team, a team that has been ranked for a good portion of this year. And I forget who the fourth is, but was that Notre Dame? Or no, they beat
no,
Notre
that
Dame.
no,
Yeah.
NC State or somebody or
Maybe it was Louisville. I can't
could have
recall
been
off the
yeah,
top of my head.
just still
Anyway,
a yeah,
they're probably not as bad as their 6-4 record shows. I don't think UNC is close to as good as their 8-2 record shows. So I'm taking Clemson as the better team here,
okay,
and I think that's why the line is what it is. It's a 7.5 point line. You don't see that too often for an unranked team being a 7.5 point favorite over a ranked
yeah,
team.
no, and it's just totally like you've mentioned. It's totally indicative of the talent on the
Hmm.
field that's going to be on at all times for from Clemson's perspective, and yeah, coaching. Maybe yeah. If anything, it's the quarterback is a relatively weaker link in terms of the matchup itself.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's like I as much as I believe
Hmm.
biases aside and you know belief in Drake May, it's like I don't know if yeah seven. It's the line. I think
Yeah,
it's probably
and
it's
you have
probably
to
a great
say,
line.
who do
Yeah,
you think's going to win the war in the trenches?
yeah.
I
From
mean,
how UNC made it look against
well, that's what
South
I was going to
Carolina
say.
first game of the
Other
season.
than week one, or maybe that was even a week
Yeah,
zero game,
yeah,
that yeah, UNC got to Spencer Rattler like they had the best D line in the history of
yeah.
college football.
Dominated
Ever
and
since
yeah.
then, their offensive line and defensive line haven't graded out that well.
Nope,
So
nope,
yeah,
nope.
and Clemson's got a lot of big dudes down there in the trenches.
Yep. Yeah, they always do, and definitely a good, pretty stout defense. So could just control that matchup in terms of not even allowing Drake May and that offense to score enough.
Hmm.
But Minnesota, Ohio State here, 27.5 point line for Ohio State in Columbus. Maybe I would expect a little bit more. Maybe would have expected like third in the low 30. Excuse me, in the low 30s. But yeah, I don't know. I just not too convicted enough in Ohio State's offense to really hold, I should say, a 4 touchdown win.
Hmm.
Michigan State, another story because of just that
Yeah.
matchup. It's just something having their number, so to speak. But I don't know. I just think maybe Minnesota is able to you know lose by 24 points and cover that. But I mean, any thoughts on this one?
Uh, I won't even give Minnesota that much credit, and I don't want to disparage them. They're not having that bad of a season. They're not that bad of a football team, but
Yeah.
not that bad just doesn't cut it against Ohio State. So,
No. No. Yeah. I think that's enough
mhm.
said there. Oregon, Arizona State. Talking about an Oregon team. Look, I put a future on them last weekend. Talking about a contrast of the road in for to a Pac-12 championship game. There couldn't be more of a stark contrast, I think, in matchup. No offense to Arizona State, traveling to Arizona State or traveling to Tempe versus traveling to Corvallis. Um, Oregon, I mean, it couldn't be more of, I feel like, a contrast, again, not to be redundant, in who Oregon has to play and Washington in
Yeah.
terms of tests this weekend.
Although I will push back on that a bit. Arizona State, we've seen play some
Play
great teams really tough.
Washington
Washington,
really
most
close.
famously, they
Yeah.
took them to overtime, but
I think it was just
or
15, or USC it might have been.
yes, they took USC to overtime. They lost Washington on the last drive of the game.
Yeah, or
Uh,
it was like 15-7 against. That was where really that's been a narrative for Washington of who's going to what Washington will show up,
yeah,
But
um,
yeah, they've
but yeah,
kept it
Arizona
close.
State has. I forget who they had week one too. They looked. They've played three quarterbacks this year, and all three they've looked better than a 3-7 team. Now they've gone 3-7, but
Just I think maybe what unfortunate with scheduling and obviously the rest of
mhm.
the true strength of the conference top to bottom. Just unfortunate somebody's naturally going to be pushed down, I guess, and that's Arizona State's fallen relatively victim to
Yeah,
that. But yeah, look, they've played a lot of teams close, and yeah, even Colorado, my Colorado,
yeah.
buffs here, that was a close one. And, Colorado, I feel like, maybe they very well do get my 6 wins if they are in another conference this year, but it's just, look, the strength of the conference. And
Yeah,
I guess do you have specific convictions,
yeah.
bet wise or?
For me, this Arizona State team is better than they look. They're better than they seem. They're better than their record shows.
Okay.
And Oregon, it's a natural look ahead spot.
Sure.
You're looking not just ahead to next week, but you're looking at the potential Pac-12 championship game. You're looking at the
Hmm.
potential of a college football playoff berth.
Yep.
I'm not saying that Arizona State's going to pull a crazy upset here, but
I
would I
gotcha.
be shocked if they lose by 17? Not at all.
At
So,
home, and they got home field,
yeah.
be up for it.
So I'm taking ASU and the points on that.
Okay. Fair enough. Oklahoma State versus Houston after quite a disappointment from Oklahoma State and how they looked versus UCF. You rightfully identified UCF in that matchup down in Orlando.
Mhm.
But yeah, look, I don't really. I mean, I feel like it's thoughts. Oh, it's going to be a high scoring game, which 58.5, I guess, indicates that. But I'm not. Yeah, I guess if I were to guess, bounce back for Oklahoma State. But Houston, look, they played Texas really close, and I think Texas. Talk about a Texas. I think is a much much better team than
Mhm.
Oklahoma State. But any closing thoughts on this one, Con?
I look at this as a bounce back Oklahoma State spot. I think they win this game. I think they probably cover too.
Okay, you want to talk about this thrilling matchup we got for ACC your conference?
Yeah, Florida State took a page out of the SEC's book.
Yeah.
They're trying to get to the SEC next season,
Yep.
so maybe they were like, "Hey, let me show you guys I can do it too." I'll
Yeah.
schedule North Alabama. Yeah, nothing to say about this game. Not a word.
Yep.
If North Alabama scores more than 10 points, I will be shocked.
Hmm. It'll be fun for me getting the if I can even find the logo for the graphic for this one. But watch me. Hey, North Alabama, if you gotta get some fuel to motivate, figure out how to get to this YouTube channel and watch this segment here, this show. But CW, just such a spotlighted game. But Kansas State, Kansas, pretty talk about a under the radar, a pretty intriguing matchup. Top 25, a battle of Kansas there. K State 10-point favorite.
Well,
But
it's all. I don't even know who's going to be playing quarterback for Kansas.
yeah, talk about yeah.
You're already on your backup. You lose him. I don't know who the third stringer is. Clearly, not someone that Vegas has a lot of confidence in because Kansas has had a really good season. You could argue that they've had the better season of the two. They've both had very good seasons.
I think yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's tough when you don't have a quarterback.
absolutely. And that I think can maybe simplify it, dumb it down to almost that. Well, look at Kansas State, Will Howard. They certainly have a great college quarterback
Hmm.
and dual threat. I think it's really, it's very different. I feel like clashes of who's riding the momentum, and K-State absolutely, I think, is riding that momentum, and Kansas just is not, to put it, I guess, frank. But getting into the big game here, who do you got, Oregon State or Washington?
It's tough. I spent basically all week leading up to this going, there's so many people picking Oregon State. Washington is hearing all this. They're saying, hey, we're still Washington. We're still on the inside track for the college football playoff. We're still undefeated. We still have maybe the Heisman at quarterback. Like, this is a spot where Washington puts it all on the bulletin board. They get hype all week, and they go out and smash them. And then I saw the line. And the line, to me, seems like they're begging people to bet on Washington. Number 5 team in the country that, everyone loves the offense, all this, and they're an underdog. It seems like they're almost goading people into, yeah, I'll take the Washington money line because Oregon State is going to win this game. I don't know. It's thrown me for a little bit of a loop.
Okay. Well, that was I like the setup there and the analysis and in terms of trying to see read between the lines here. But look, call me then a sucker. I'm going to take Washington money line, one of the best bets, teasing there. But I think you set it up there pretty perfectly. Yes, a little bit of a shock factor, I think, is you see the 5th ranked team in the country, and they're a dog at this point. Albeit, the context, they're on the road against it says 2-1, so the 11th ranked team, but really top to bottom, maybe a top 10 team. Not a hot take there at all. Bold thing to say, I don't think. And it's going to be, they could get everything that they could possibly handle in an Oregon State team that's, very good, complete, can beat you. A cup can beat anybody, to be honest. But I'm going to believe in Kalen DeBoer, Michael Penix, and the leaders on Washington's team. I think it's almost, for me, it's too easy to think, oh yeah, just going into a bit of a buzzsaw in Oregon State, it's just going to be too much to overcome. And it's almost like I'm psyching myself out here, but it's like I think of the past Oregon teams where it's like they're always kind of this undefeated Pac-12 team, and they have this type of game toward the end of the season, and then it kind of derails their season. I think Washington kind of changes the. Obviously, Washington is not Oregon. I think Washington as a program and who's at the helm there, I think they find a way to. It's not going to be pretty, but it might be a 20-10 game at the half. Washington's got to pull something out in the second half. I believe. I'm calling me a believer, but I'm going with Washington. One of the best bets there.
All right, even though I probably still like that side better for the sake of a gut off,
okay.
I'll take Oregon State on the
turn of a gut off, baby. Let's go 3-0 historically. We'll see. Could I suffer my first gut off? Or is Con being nice to just ensure the best bet hits? I don't know. But Florida, Missouri, as we wrap up some of the top 25 games here. Another matchup, under the radar matchup, talk about player matchups that I considered in the vein of Dylan Johnson versus Damian Martinez, obviously in the Washington Oregon State clash that we just spoke of. Actually, I just realized I didn't even think of another one. Talk about Cody Schrader, who's leading the SEC in rushing, and against Travis Etienne, Tyler Etienne of Florida, 2 good running backs. But I was even thinking the likes of Luther Burden versus a Ricky Pearsall in terms of in terms of other offensive playmakers there. But I've been a fan of Missouri. I think 11-point line. I would have to lean Missouri to cover this, to be honest. I think Florida, they're one of the teams that sure they're going to have some guys, but I just don't have the faith that they're going to show up and be able to make this all too close of a game.
I would take Missouri here if the line was 21. I think that this game still means so much for them. You look at so many other teams that are sitting at 8-2 going, okay, we're out of the college football playoff mix. If you're in Missouri's spot, we're out of the SEC championship no matter what happens, kind of coast in. Missouri, they don't have seasons like this very often, so 10-2 would be huge for them. They're really gunning for that. And also, a win over Florida would be huge for them. They don't beat Florida, they're Missouri, you know?
True.
So this is, I think they're coming out on fire. I think if one team's going to come out kind of dead, it's going to be Florida. What do they care about going 6-6 or 5-7?
Sure. I guess bull. I guess go bowling, but
Well, exactly. That means a lot to schools like Missouri that don't go to bowl
yeah,
games all the time. Kids who went to Florida were, they committed there thinking national championship, thinking about their NFL prospects. They don't care about playing in the Belk Bowl.
yeah. No offense to Belk there and folks down in Charlotte, but yeah. No, I think look, that's fair enough. Pretty much agree with all you said there and that insight with spin on this game. I guess going on to Texas, Iowa State, second to last, rounding out this top 25. Iowa State, that's okay. That's actually talking about lines that are interesting. Texas only a 7.5 point favorite. I think I expected a little bit more than that. Really expected more than that, but
Yeah, me too. Although Iowa State is one of those sneaky, like, they just ham and egg it, put together pretty good games, stay kind of close to the big guys, don't beat them, but, play good, beat the bad guys, and they're 6-4, and that's how you get to 6-4 in a Power 5 conference. And so, yeah, I mean, I still think 7.5's too small of a line, but I can see where there's some Iowa State respect out there.
sure. Yep. And I guess maybe this is one that's just too okay, it is in Ames, Iowa, so that's going to be a big home field. And yeah, I guess it's a little bit too confusing for me. I'm not as much as the line maybe prompts me. I'm just I already have my best bets, I think, but maybe honorable mention. Maybe honorable mention it is Iowa State to cover 7.5. Keep it close. Texas has shown they can, like what we talked about Houston earlier, just last week, or I'm trying to think. There's been a handful of times Texas just kind of maybe play with their meal and they don't they don't handle the game how they maybe you think they should. But yeah, interesting matchup. I guess just to round out the top 25, talking about that SEC, they're scheduling this week. LSU taking on Georgia State. Jaden Daniels and that offense coming off of a hell of a performance, and I don't think anything's going to be different against a Georgia State team still rolling, probably out by halftime in terms of the starters for I think, and how obviously LSU wants to prep for their big time end of the season game. But yeah, I guess I mean any lean any certain way or strongly in any.
I think LSU is going to try to score 10 million points in this game because Jaden Daniels still has
For the Heisman. Yeah, well, that's true. That is
he
true.
still has an outside shot at the Heisman, which I think he should. It's weird. I see the argument for not giving it to a team with 3 losses, giving it to a quarterback from a team where that's the most important position on the field. That being
Yeah.
said, he has been the most electric player in college football this
Yeah.
year. And if that's not what the award's for, what is it for? So I think, but to get it, he's going to have to really, by far, have the best stats in the country. He
Which
already
he
does have
yeah.
them, but he's going to, I think, even going to have to widen that gap. And this is a perfect spot where he could do that.
No, it is, and that's a great point. And look, I think to respond to the question you just posed about the stigma of can you really give it to the team he's on. Look, obviously he's been doing everything in his power he possibly can. Look, people have even brought up, and the comp has obviously been there now. It's been kind of brewing for a couple weeks now. Lamar Jackson, his Louisville team, when he won it, it was a 3-loss team. RG3, when RG3 won it, I think it was maybe even a 4-loss, 3-4-loss Baylor team. It doesn't. Team success shouldn't preclude who you end up giving the individual award to.
I do. I agree with you on the most part. I do think that at the quarterback position, which is the most important position in the sport, when you have a guy who should Michael Penix go 13-0 and and still have had an amazing season. It's not like he had a bad season and we're just giving it to him because the team went 13-0. Should he go 13-0, being the leader of that team and the quarterback, that's tough to overcome, and it's not even necessarily a slight to Jaden Daniels because it's not his fault the defense gives up a bunch of points. But that is, a notch on the belt of Michael Penix that Jane Daniels doesn't have the opportunity to get. You know.
Sure. I think, yeah, maybe, and just to just wrap up this preview segment here,
Mhm.
just leave you with one question or one thought here. Look, I think if the roles were reversed, I think Daniels could do what
I
Penix is. I
yeah
don't know if Penix puts up all of this in
yeah.
LSU if he's with LSU and in Daniels' shoes, but um, yeah, just some food for thought there in
Mhm.
terms of some existential Heisman questions here. But yeah, it should be. It's again quite a race, and it's gonna be just fun to see who's there
Mhm.
in New York because it's almost been too easy to oh Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Caleb Williams. Like
Mhm.
it's almost been too set in stone and
Mhm.
etched in stone. Like there's you could think of one or two guys,
Yeah.
three max before the season even starts,
You're
and
right. This
that's who
does
it is.
feel about as open as it has felt in a while at this
Yeah.
point in the season.
And obviously we said that even 3 weeks ago, and it's
Yeah.
been closing ever so slightly week to week. But
Mhm.
it's just going to be fun to see when push comes to shove,
Yeah.
who's representing and who's wearing the fancy suits, sitting down in that first row, and who ultimately gets the call, walks up on stage, and gives their Heisman moment, their speech there. But yeah, look, Con, let's get into some best bets, right?
Mhm.
Let's pick up where we left off. 5-1 overall.
Yep.
Quite a week for the program, and to make a bit of a statement. Look, I said it in the show though. We couldn't blame you if you faded, if you tailed. Awesome,
Yeah.
but couldn't blame you either way. This is now the true testament.
But if you
How do we
faded,
respond?
jokes on you because we were so good.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Sorry, not sorry, but this is the time to maybe hop on the wagon here.
Mhm.
Do you
Ride
want?
the heater.
Yeah. I guess I've kind of maybe made it more clear or more
Yeah.
obvious. I
Run
guess
through
mine.
yours
I'll
real
just
quick.
rattle off. And look, the first we were both kind of on Miami -1. Just weird. I don't even have. It even is weird and funny to say it.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a best bet. Like it or not, it's one of my best bets. Miami -1 at home against Louisville. Number two, I gotta go. Actually, for both of these next two, we're going to the Pac-12. I hinted as much once we were wrapping up covering the game. Arizona, Utah. Give me the over 46.5 for the game. Look, maybe I'm just riding some hot hands on some gravy trains on the show. Arizona covering your over team total of
Yep.
32.5 last week against on a game-winning field goal against Colorado. Me with Utah just being in the absolute shootout of a first half with Washington, the over 50 or over 49.5, that hitting for me in the first half alone
Mhm.
last week. I think, look, defenses might play a role, but I don't think they're going to do enough to prevent this from being a potential 27-20 game,
Mhm.
which cashes the over. Um, Last but not least, look, just talked about them. I'm maybe I got some gravy train teams for me. And look, it's already hit. I think relative to the games I've been on, I'm 2-0 with this team as well. Washington, I said it. Yeah, give me Washington. I guess money line. Look, they're I guess a 1 point dog.
Mhm.
Washington at Oregon State. Let's go Huskies, baby. Con, who do you got?
Yeah. Since you sniped me on the Miami pick, don't worry, I've got three others. I got Ole Miss minus 37.5. I just think that one team's that much better than the other.
Sure.
Not much evaluation there. I got Arizona State getting 24.5. I alluded to that when we talked about that game. I think there's a lot of ways that could stay within that number.
Hmm.
And I got Mizzou minus 11, which I came out and said how much I loved that a second ago when we talked
Yep.
about that game.
Yep.
So those are my three. We're kind of sharing the Miami -1 pick, which means if you think we're dumb, fade it. If you
Yeah.
think we're smart, ride it. But either way, not too often we both have a same best bet. So
No, and look, the proof is semi in the pudding with how I set it up as much the rationale. Last week it was, oh my God, Kansas only a 4 point favorite against a Texas Tech team
yep.
that just didn't really seem like they were going to be in a game like that, but they got it money line, ended up winning by quite a few points. And look, it's similar thinking this week. Look, we're not trying to overcomplicate it. We're not trying to overcomplicate things this week. maybe we found something. Knock on wood. But hey, Con, I think that's a Week 12 preview.
Yep. I'm Washington Michael Penix Jr. He's Indiana Michael Penix Jr.
Still really good player.
You.
Still good.
No.
He was a good
No,
player.
he
Yes,
was not.
he was a
One
good
year during
player.
the COVID season. The next year he was the
good-
worst quarterback in the country.
Oh, beat Penn State.